and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Monica. I like to post anti-MLMs, that's anti-multi-level marketing, life, and some true crime content here on this channel. So if any of that interests you, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to stick around. In today's video, I am bringing you anti-MLM / anti-cult content. So of course, just as a disclaimer, this video is for entertainment purposes only and just my opinions, along with the opinions of my guests today. Yes, I did an interview with Spike from Jon Atack Family and Friends. Every single social media, YouTube channel, specific videos that Spike, whether she mentioned them in the video or whatever the case may be, they will be linked in the description box below. Out of this amazing conversation that I had with Spike, and if you watch my face at certain parts, I'm literally just staring because I could listen to Spike speak for hours. Spike has a very storytelling type of voice. So for me, I was just like mesmerized by what she was saying, how she was saying it. So I really think you guys are going to enjoy this interview. And there is going to be another part to this because we were supposed to go over more things, but we just ran out of time. There were two things that Spike kind of not necessarily misspoke, but there were two really minor details that were incorrect. As we'll go through, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But the first one is that Lifton was born in 1926, not 1922. The second thing that Spike wanted to correct is there's a Monty Python skit that she refers to. And she said that in the video, or in the interview, she spoke about how this was a good example of sacred science, but it's more of an example of doctrine over person. So keep that in mind as we go through this interview. Like I said, I think that you guys are really going to love this interview. I loved speaking with Spike. I cannot wait to have another conversation because we do want to talk about other cult-like things and other cult topics because cults are something that really interests me, and there are parallels between that and the MLM industry, as many people have said, obviously. But I just find it so incredibly interesting, and I cannot wait to show you guys this interview. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so thanks everyone for coming back to my channel. This is Spike, and I'm gonna have Spike go ahead and introduce herself and the channel and all of that. So just go right ahead and introduce everything.
Cool, thank you very much. Okay, I'm Spike Robinson, and I work for author Jon Atack, the man who wrote the book on Scientology called Let's Sell These People a Piece of Blue Sky. And you can find us on the channel Jon Atack Family and Friends. Probably leave a link in the description below, of course.
Yep.
And we're going to be plugging our upcoming book, Opening Our Minds, which basically talks about how people get into high control groups, how they get in, why they stay, why they leave, and how unethical influence, manipulative control is all around us. It's not just in what people think of as a cult, it's also in, say, advertising, in government, in our education system, and it's all a matter of degree, how high the control is, so that it could be one group over here is very high control and you can't do anything without asking the leader, and another one of the same belief system, same whatever, might be, oh yeah, show up whenever you want, you know. So it's not about belief, it's about the levels of control.
Yeah. So I did want to, hold on, let me pull it up real quick so I can look at it. I wanted you to kind of introduce and talk about because a lot of us here in the anti-MLM movement talk about Stephen Hassan's BITE model. And
Oh yes.
yeah, and I didn't know about this until you actually introduced me, the Lifton's 8 criteria of thought control. So I wanted you to kind of introduce that because, as I said, I'd never heard about that until I spoke with you. And I think that we'll go over the BITE model too, but I want you to kind of talk about that as well.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of really good models. Steve's model is great too. I'm honored actually to have him as one of my friends now. So hi, Steve. Shout out to him. He's a great, really great guy. And he actually has worked with Lifton. When he got out of the Moonies, he went to Robert J. Lifton, and Robert J. said, you got to talk about this. You've got this great idea, because he's got this, a lot of us who do this have this mindset of we can quantify things very well and explain them to others. So Robert J. Lifton, born in 1922, back in the Korean War, he was an Air Force psychologist, and he went over to China just as the Maoist reformation was happening. And what happened in Mao's time is he took all of China and said, okay, we're throwing out all the old values, we're instituting these new values. And that meant taking a lot of people and putting them in camps. Not everybody, but a lot of people, the intellectuals, the old regime, people who just were troublemakers, and had them breaking down, and it was pretty intense stuff. But what happened was there were a bunch of Americans in those camps too, and once they got released, they had signed all sorts of confessions saying that they'd done things that they hadn't really done. There were several Vatican priests who confessed to being part of a conspiracy that didn't exist. And once they got out of that camp, they couldn't understand why they had been so loyal to their captors, why they had done this, why they hadn't even tried to escape, why had they turned into these essentially different people. And so Robert J. Lifton, who was also an excellent author, he's still alive. He's 90 something now. He wrote the excellent book, let me get to the title here, Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. And in the chapter 22, he lists these 8 criteria that can be found in any high control situation in varying levels. And abusive marriages. Margaret Singer, who was also one of Lifton's colleagues, came along, and she said that a lot of these soldiers that were coming back were experiencing and showing the same symptoms as abused spouses who had just left an abusive relationship. There's a lot of similar dynamics between abusive relationships and authoritarian groups or high control groups. In fact, you could say that a high control group is just like an abusive relationship. It's just there's a lot more people involved. And an abusive relationship is a lot like a cult, but it's just 2 people involved, but a lot of the same things. So the list, do you want me to do them one by one, or do you want me to do a rundown of what they are first and then do the one by one?
I guess do a rundown real quick, and then you could go to each point.
Cool. Okay, the steps are milieu control, which is controlling the atmosphere. Then the second is loading the language, using your own specific terms. Mystical manipulation, or basically planned spontaneity, making miracles happen and making people think that they're miracles. Sacred science, where you can't question this data we're giving you. It's sacred. It's even better than science. Then there's the demand for purity. You have to be pure. You have to be good. You have to follow the rules. Then there's the cult of confession, where, oh, I was horrible. I was bad. I stole money from a mama's purse and I was awful. Then I found the group. And then I was better. So that you confess your sins beforehand. Then there's doctrine over person, which is basically, doesn't matter what you think or feel or see. What matters is what we tell you. And then the saddest and last one is dispensing of existence. And that is basically only the in-group has a valuable life. Everybody else is just fake people. Okay?
Yeah.
So any questions so far? I hope that That
No,
made sense.
no questions.
I
But you
did.
just, yeah,
Okay.
just go ahead
Okay.
and do your thing.
Okay. Okay. Milieu control. Milieu control. Now, you've been to a fancy restaurant, right?
Hmm.
And the lights are dimmed and everything's nice. And that means you act a certain way. Or you ever gone to a house where there's a pile of shoes at the door?
Hmm.
And that means that you remove your shoes.
Hmm.
Or anything. Milieu control is basically, milieu is the atmosphere, the whatever's going on. So you go to a restaurant, they've got a certain milieu. You go to a supermarket, it's got a different milieu. It's basically controlling everything that's around. So some large group awarenesses, they lock you in that hotel ballroom and they don't let you go away. In MLMs, those conventions are so controlled, aren't they?
Hmm.
And there's also something called, now this is an addition to Lifton's thing, the peak experience, where everybody's cheering and everybody's happy, and it whoops you up into the state of so you're really enthusiastic and everybody else is really enthusiastic. We are flocking creatures. So we will, if everybody else around us is acting a certain way, we will act that way too.
It's like a Tony Robbins conference.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I never had respect for the man, but what respect I would have lost for him. I've seen, oh God, any case. But yes, but also rock concerts, political rallies, baseball games. You ever done the wave?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's part of what also Robert Cialdini calls social proof. We can go under his model later, but milieu control is basically we control the atmosphere. One example in Hollywood is, you ever seen The Exorcist?
Yes.
They go in that room and they're shivering. Well, what happened was the director actually put the temperature of the room down to the level of a refrigerator to get that effect, not only so you could really see their breath, but so that they were all huddled and
Yeah.
scared and shivering looking. Or in The Shining, Kubrick actually made Shelley Duvall the scapegoat for everything on set. She told all the people on set, don't talk to her, don't be nice to her, don't compliment her. And then he'd go away with Jack Nicholson and have a party, and Shelley Duvall was just left there being shouted out and ignored and snubbed by everybody in order to create that amazing performance.
Hmm. I actually did read about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's milieu control, where you want a certain effect, so you create an atmosphere. And a lot of groups will do that. You enter the temple and there's incense and there's robes and there's the trappings, and it's the atmosphere creates a certain effect, creates a certain, okay, now we're going to do this, a certain mindset.
Hmm.
And it can be high control or it can be low control. It can be in I used to work in a certain store we shall not mention that does a Thanksgiving Day parade. And what they do is they have, for higher priced items, the lights are lower.
Hmm.
The music is calmer. When there's sound zones with different piped in music in different places, used to drive me absolutely bonkers. And that, but it was supposed to make people progress through the store. You wonder why you can't find your way out of an IKEA? That is milieu control. You're going through an entire pathway so that you will buy more. Supermarkets do this too.
Hmm.
So that's what milieu control is, basically.
Okay.
Now, loaded language, that's one, because we were talking before we started recording about your being bilingual and everything. and how it sometimes will get into how you think and react. Well, loading the language is, MLMs, I'm sure, do this all the time, where you have certain phrases that mean things. They're loaded.
Mm-hmm.
They've got you've got certain phrases that mean certain things that wouldn't have the same meaning outside the group. Like, what do you got? You on an MLM, they have a certain phrase for people who aren't in an MLM, right?
Sometimes they call people like me haters.
But they have certain jargon. A lot of Scientology is the past master of this. They have lists and lists. Hubbard created 600-page dictionaries of lists, and yet he said that the reason that people don't learn things is because of misunderstood words. But here's 2 big dictionaries of words that you need to learn.
Yeah.
But there's also things like in Jehovah's Witnesses, you're marked or you're worldly. If you're not one of the people, if you're worldly, there's all sorts of phrases that mean something to us, but don't mean anything to them. So this creates 2 things. First of all, it creates a level of confusion in the new recruit. They're having to go, if you're not quite understanding what somebody is saying, you're going, okay, fine, I'll go along, and then maybe once I get it, I'll understand better. But for right now, I'm not going to argue.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates that thing. Then there's also a sense of being separate from the world that loaded language creates, this sense of elitism, because we're the ones in the know and we have our own special language to prove it. It also creates a wall between those in the know and those not in the know. Because you're sitting and you're talking your own little language. The other people who aren't in your group can't understand a word you're saying.
Yeah.
And so that separates them.
Yeah.
It also, loaded language also, ever read 1984, the idea that if you don't have the word, I'm not sure how much I buy into this. If you don't have the word for crime think, you're not going to commit the crime. I keep going back and forth on this because I've seen animals rebel when they know something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you give one chimp 1 banana and you give the other chimp 2 bananas and they see that, they will tell you without words, without language, hey, that ain't fair.
Mm-hmm.
So they have something that's beyond, the idea that something's not right here does go beyond our language, but it's a lot harder to express.
Yeah.
And if you've got all your attitudes that freedom means slavery and this means something else, and so that it's a lot of the time also things like taking a certain politician's name and putting a bad adjective in front of them and keeping on doing that will make it so that, oh yeah, she lies all the time because that's what we call her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and or he's horrible because, you know, so that you start thinking in those terms because that's the label that you've put on it.
Yeah.
So that's loaded language. Mystical manipulation is a really fun one. Back at the fall of the Berlin Wall, a lot of Scientologists were congratulating each other because they'd caused the fall of the Berlin Wall because a certain set of new tapes came out. Back when I was in my own high control group, which is a long time ago, and it was really, really weird sort of thing. You ever burned a creamer packet?
Yeah.
Take one of those little creamer packets, take to, don't do this at home, kids. And then you set it on fire with a lighter. I was doing that and annoying our leader, and he told me to stop. And on the way home, I saw a house on fire. And when I reported this back, I was told that I had set the house on fire because I'd been fooling around with my lighter. Now, mystical manipulation is the idea that There's an earthquake, that's a sign from God. There's a star in the sky, that's a sign from Buddha. There, you got this done, that's a sign. That's assigning meaning that really isn't meaning to coincidences, or even making things happen that actually have physical explanations, but assigning a mystical or other meaning to them. Like a lot of the time in the neo-pagan community, they'll go, oh, rub your eyes and you'll see your aura suddenly. It's like, no, that's your optic nerve saying, don't press on my eyeball. Or also, it's very, very true that in any high control group, anything good is from the group and your membership with the group. Anything bad is on you. So mystical manipulation is the assigning of meaning to something that isn't really there. Or also you can do things like, there was a guru called Sai Baba, and he had this little kneeler in front of his throne where the worshipful could come and kneel in front of him and they'd feel his energy. Well, it turned out that the kneeler in front of his throne had a mild electric current running through it. So that anytime you kneel on it, you feel the tingle of his energy.
Okay. That's deceptive.
Yeah, very deceptive. Well, that's the thing. It is all of this about deception. People go, well, why did they join? Because they were deceived into joining. They thought they were getting cherry pie. They got a crust with nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
It's basically, and that's there was a very adept lawyer in London who was doing a case against Scientology. And he said, and he likened it to buying a jar of strawberry jam. Does the jam have the promised strawberries? Then it's okay. But if you're advertising strawberry jam and what you're really giving them is arsenic, it's not on them for eating the arsenic. It's on you for telling them that it's strawberry jam.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
mystical manipulation. Let's see. Sacred science. Now, there's a lot of this in MLMs. When they're particularly the healthcare products and things like that, where you can't question the system. I've even seen this. This was in one of your recent videos that somebody was saying, don't let anybody else tell you otherwise, somebody was saying.
That could be a number of videos.
Yeah, probably. It was the gal was saying this really works and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Oh, that might have been was it the reaction that I did to the unique rep? It might have been the unique rep.
I think so.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
But whoever it was, if you hear don't let anybody tell you otherwise, you should always let somebody tell you otherwise and then judge for yourself whether or not the evidence stacks up. But with sacred science, you can't let the evidence step up. There's something in Scientology called keeping Scientology working, where at the start of every course, you have to sign a paper saying that you will drum out incorrect application of the technology and that you must believe this. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that you have to follow this sacred science. You have to follow that this is the method and it works. And if it doesn't work, it's on you again.
Okay.
So if you don't understand it, it's your fault. And if it doesn't make any sense, scientific sense, that's because you're not understanding and it's beyond science. You just have to accept it as a matter of faith.
That does happen in MLMs.
Yeah. Oh, it happens in all sorts of things. You have to believe that this wine has turned into blood. You have to believe that I am actually healing you just because I'm waving my hands over you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe this. And yeah. One of the best illustrations of this is the dead parrot sketch of Monty Python.
Mm-hmm.
This parrot is dead. No, it isn't.
Oh.
No, it isn't. You're just conceiving it wrong. No, it isn't dead. Yeah, this parrot is dead. No, it isn't. Sacred science all over. Moving right along down to demand for purity. Now, this is one, I don't know how much this is in that you have to be pure. You have to give up stuff in order to. So that, going back to the Jehovah's Witnesses again, can't smoke, can't drink to excess, though you go to Bethel, they're all, yeah, it's a joke. I've met now people who have served at Bethel, and the joke is that the wine bottles could stack up, but you can't wear, couldn't wear pants. I don't even own a skirt that fits me right now. I would be in deep trouble if I was a JW. But it doesn't start right away. You go into a group, they're all shiny and wonderful and hi, how are you? And then you get, you really shouldn't be doing that. You got to be a little bit better, because if you're not this, and this, you're not fitting. And the control, those levels of control won't show up until you're already well in. So that the demand for purity, and also what they'll do is they'll make sure that you've got, it's the idealized member is this, it's this icon that you must reach for. Like in Lululemon, it's what is the name of the idealized customer that they've got again? And you've got to strive for her. Oh, winter, ocean.
Yeah, it's something weird
Ocean,
like
summer. It's like, what the? What? But the idealized customer, the idealized member. Oh, I know where it would be in your MLMs. It would be your double diamond members, your Ocean.
Ocean.
Ocean
Yeah.
is her name.
Sorry, I was looking it up.
No, please. My brain, I've forgotten more stuff.
Yeah.
But you've got to be Ocean, or you've got to be your double diamond member. You've got to be this big thing. You've got to be the ideal version. You have to give up all of this stuff that's not right, not good. You gotta be pure. You gotta toe the line. You gotta do the stuff. You've got to be this expectation. And I will put that with the caveat that that sort of stuff happens very slowly. A lot of people say, well, if they told me I couldn't do this, I'd leave right away. It's like, yeah, right. Think of it like the frog in the pot. You ever heard the parable of the frog in the pot?
Mm-hmm.
You have a frog, cold water, and sitting in the pot. If you turn up the pot right away, high heat, he's going to jump out. But you just turn it up a little bit at a time, you're going to have frog soup pretty soon.
Yeah. Ooh. That just sounds gross.
So a lot of these controls happen very slowly over a period of time, or over an intense period of, once again, the altered states that come with your peak experience. And after your conventions, you're really raring to go to be that perfect person. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The peak experience plays out in a lot of these. Culture of confession is the next one. And this is kind of leading from the demand for purity, because how do you know you're pure? Because you're confessing stuff. Now, you ever sat on a bus and had somebody all of a sudden tell you their entire life story? I know, I that's why I wear bangs now, because tattooed on my forehead says, please tell me your entire life story in great detail.
That happened to me in the meat section at Walmart. I was literally just picking up some chicken, and this lady, I don't know what, I don't know if it's because I'm in the South, but she literally told me what she was going to make with that chicken and this recipe and
Mhm.
how her whole family loves it. Now she's telling me about how many kids she has, and I'm just like, I need to go to work.
Well, we are gregarious animals. Our nearest relatives, the chimps and the bonobos, live in small, extended family troops. Talking to each other, sharing information is a big part of who we are.
Mhm.
Also, it just feels good to unburden yourself. It feels good to get stuff out in the open. And when you, particularly in religious groups, they've got this list of thou shalt nots. So, in order to get that demand for purity, you've got to confess, well, I did this, I did that, I stole from my mom's purse, I shoplifted as a child, I dyed my hair strange colors, and yeah. And the idea is that then you have the confession, and then they go, that's all right, you've changed now, and you're awesome now, but you were awful before. In Scientology, you have to write, if you go on staff, you have to write a life story. And they say it's just so to get it off, but usually it's for blackmail if you ever leave.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of the time, those will be reframed. Margaret Singer, once again, the great author of Cults in Our Midst, she was interviewing a guy who said before he joined his group, he was a druggie. And she said, well, what does that mean? What drugs did you take? And she was expecting, like heroin, morphine. He'd had 2 tokes off of a marijuana spliff. Druggie.
That's
So that,
terrible.
or people will be told, with this confession, well, actually, even though you think your childhood was great, actually your parents abused you. So that your past is rewritten and reframed through this confession. So that you start believing that your life was pretty much awful before you joined the group.
Yeah.
And that it's the group that made your life good.
That's
That's
what
the
they do in
power of the group.
MLMs.
Yeah, they do that. Good. Yeah, well, that's the thing. If it's a high control group or a high control relationship, it's gonna have one or all of these 8 elements in playing in some order.
Mhm.
Then we've got doctrine over person. This one is, it doesn't matter what you believe, it's or what you've seen, it's what we tell you is going on. So that, I could, there was one where a guy said, somebody coming just out of the Marines said, there's no brutality in the Marines. And in the same sentence, he would tell you about how he was forced to do all of this stuff and hit and had to, but there's no brutality. Or my husband
Mhm.
doesn't hit me. Well, I mean, he does, but he doesn't do this. Or my, basically the changing of reality according to belief. That that's not blue, Oh, but it is. It looks blue. No, it isn't blue. It's the denial of facts, and you're just, it's the doctrine is more. If your facts don't match up with what the group's telling you, then you've got your facts wrong. I'm sure MLMs probably do this.
Mhm.
Well, I took that shake and it didn't change, didn't make me lose weight. Well, you're doing it wrong.
Yep. I actually have a video on my channel of a Beachbody coach. She said that where she said that, oh, if you guys say that the programs don't work, then you're just not working hard enough for it. Meaning like not just being a Beachbody coach per se, but being a customer. And I had, because I'm an ex Beachbody coach, and
Mhm.
I had people in my group where there were some that did really great. They did really, really great. And then there were some where they didn't see any results. And instead of me being like, oh, you just didn't do it right, because I knew that they were doing it right, because they would check in with me and they even said, hey, something's not working here. And that's because every single person, their body is going to be different. Their body is going to react differently. And for
Mm-hmm.
some people, it's harder to lose weight than others. Like for me, it takes me probably about double the time if I'm eating healthy and stuff like that. And if I am looking to lose a couple of pounds, it'll take me a lot longer than the average person. That's just how my body is. And that's, and the fact that this coach said, like, oh, you're just not doing it right. Well, there's a reason why there's so many there's a reason why there's so many different types or ways of eating, and there's a reason why there are so many different ways of working out, because it works differently for every single person. So
Mm,
that's something that, yeah, you will see that within MLMs. They will tell you that you're not using it right, or the essential oil reps. If you take a specific, there was oh my gosh, what was it called? The Netflix series Unwell. They had that one uh, essential oil one. And there was that one lady
mm,
at the end who she had that allergic reaction, and they were saying, oh, you just need to take this other one. And it's like, no, this lady is clearly having an allergic reaction. So, and I'm
mm,
I'm sure that a lot of reps were like, no, you're just not using it right. Like I'm sure that that was
mm,
said at one point. So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's the whole and to point that nothing works for everybody. That's
Mhm.
one major warning sign. If somebody says it works for everybody, still there's I would say that there's 7.5 billion different ways to lose weight.
Mhm.
Basically, because there's 7.5, is it still 7.5 billion folks on the earth right now?
I can't remember.
I forget. All I know is that it's roughly more than twice what it was the year I was born.
Hmm.
So the
Yeah.
population has grown that much since I got here. It's a very popular place now. Anyway, but the other thing is, like, say once again in the Jehovah's Witnesses, we don't have any sexual abuse problem. We abhor childhood sexual abuse. And yet this girl will say, wait a minute, I went to the elders and I said my father was abusing me, and they just said to pray more. Oh no, we don't do that. Or also, their lawyer lied in the high court in Canada, their Supreme Court, saying that they don't shun people, and when somebody is disfellowshipped, normal family relations continue. They're not allowed to do that. You go into their conventions, which are also high peak experiences that everybody has to go to at least once a year, and they listen to these films. You watch their films. They show people. They show one very horrible film of a woman talking about how her parents didn't speak to her for 15 years, and she was so grateful because if they'd even spoken to her once during that time, she wouldn't have come back to Jehovah. But hey, we don't shun, we don't do shunning. Or Scientology is compatible with any religion. And yet if you go through OT3, the whole Xenu incident with the space, you learn that all the other world religions are just stories that were implanted into us. So yeah, so in any case, it's basically this what or the line from the Men in Black rap, what you see you did not see.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's also something in Scientology called the Truth Rundown. Say that I saw David Miscavige, head of Scientology, slap one of his assistants. And I went, I saw David Miscavige slap somebody. They would haul me into a room, charging me about a couple $1,000s an hour to go, now what evil thought were you thinking that made you think that David Miscavige slapped somebody? So it can be in various ways, from, oh, well, it didn't work because you weren't trying hard enough, to you did not see that. And it's only because you have an evil purpose that you think you saw it.
Yeah.
Doctrine over person. Now that sounds pretty horrible, but the worst one is dispensing of existence. And this is one where, and this can be in politics, this can be in war. This is the genocide one. This is where, if you're not in the group, if you're not one of the cool kids, you're not worth anything. I even got quite upset when, back in the neo-pagan community, they started going that only 144,000 of us will survive 2012. It was like, no. And, or the Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're not good with Jehovah, you will be killed at Armageddon. And even if it's not you will be killed, if you're not in the in-group in an MLM, there's this, they're just dilettantes. They're not in, they don't understand. They're not like us.
Mm-hmm.
They're not our kind of people. There's all sorts of varieties of that, from just, oh, they're just wrong, or you're a hater.
Mm-hmm.
There's your dispensing of existence right there. You can't be listened to because you're just a hater. It's the dismissing of the reality of a human being.
Yeah, they say that, or they say that I'm uneducated, or that, because I guess they haven't watched like other videos of mine where I talk about how I was an MLM rep. They say that their MLM is different, or that I don't understand because I was a rep for Beachbody and Mary Kay, but not this one. And then, of course, there's the ad hominem attacks and all of that. But yeah, that, as soon as they start with that, the conversation for me is over. And I'm just like, thanks for the engagement. Have a great day. Good luck. But yeah, it's the things that they get so upset about. And I've had great conversations with MLM reps. I've had some MLM reps that talk to me in the comment section, and we still agree to disagree at the end of the conversation, but at least they're respectful about it and they tell their side of the story. Usually they have a lot of opinion-based things, but I like to hear them out, and I like to give them that chance to interact and know that we're not haters. We're here to educate. We're here to, that's what we're here for, and we're not here to make fun of you or anything like that. That's why when I have the
that's one of the great things that I like about Alanda, is that right off she says, do not send any hate to anybody in it. Bringing back Scientology again, I'm sorry, it's so hard not to give, because they are the prime example. They are the best case study. They really are. Not only how people can get in unwittingly through front groups too. Front groups is an entire other video where Steve Hassan, he didn't know he was getting into a Mooney conference. They didn't even mention Reverend Moon until he'd already been to a weekend conference and gotten him in, because it was Students for Peace and Justice or something like that. Actually, it was three very attractive young women. I think he'd just broken up with a girlfriend. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask him again. But it was three very attractive women came and approached him at the student union. It's college. Come on.
Got it.
Yeah. The Children of God, which is a horrible group, called it Flirty Fishing, where they actually, some of the female members were forced into prostitution to get contributions and new members.
That's actually
Flirty Fishing.
Children of God, that's actually one that I want to look into, because I didn't know about that until I watched Not Your Guru with Tony Robbins on Netflix. I never heard about it until then, because there was a woman that was at this conference, and she spoke about how she was born into Children of God and how she was used for those types of things. So And then
And the
it's
children are
yeah. And
it's a horrible, but I can recommend you some good books.
yeah.
It's it's a horrible organization. It is the worst. It's even worse than Scientology, in my opinion. But
That's horrible.
and there's not much more worse than Scientology. But they, the dispensing of existence is they say that people are meat bodies.
Mm-hmm.
They're just wogs, which is in non-American English, in British English, Australian English, and a couple other places, wog is the N-word.
Okay.
And that's what they call non-Scientologists, wogs. And that, or anybody in the out group, you can't trust them. You don't know them. They're in a lot of the religious groups, they've got Satan working through them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't trust them. They're outside the group.
Yeah.
So that dispensing of existence means that the outsider is ignorant at best and driven by the devil or whatever your group's construct of the devil is at worst.
Yeah.
Or actively fighting. In Scientology, they have the suppressive person, where you get this little yellow goldenrod sheet of paper saying that you are a suppressive person, you are working against life. But in also the thing is that it goes the other way too. Unfortunately, in the ex-cult world, a lot of people will get out, or people will hear, or people who are just watching cults will hear about how bad the cult is, and they'll start going, cult member equals cult.
Mm-hmm.
So they will yell and scream at the cult members, which in my opinion is just the same as screaming at an abused woman or an abused husband, even, because it goes both ways. And now that we have homosexuality being more accepted socially, we're finding that in homosexual couples, domestic violence happens just as much.
Yeah.
Any case, but that screaming at an abused spouse, you're basically screaming at the victim. That's not right. John talks, my boss, John Atack, he talks about one guy who was on their Scientology's rehabilitation project force, the RPF, the lowest of the low, where you have to wear black, you can't talk to anybody, you are eating only table scraps, you're doing manual labor, scrubbing toilets with toothbrushes, the whole thing. And this guy was living the most horrible life, being abused, and a protester came up to him and spat on him. I knew that a lot of the protests, as much as Anonymous did for against Scientology, and it's wonderful, I can't say, they're wonderful for the most part. There was ones where a bunch of people were singing outside the New York organization going, and we wish you a bucket of AIDS. It's like, no. Do not hate on the victim. That is, again, another form of dispensing existence, so that it shows that we do this all the time in society. Back at 9/11, I was talking to somebody at my workplace, and he was saying, and it was just as the towers were falling. And he was saying, we're gonna kill 500 of them for every one of the people that, it's like, really? And I said, even civilians? Yes, civilians. It's like, because those civilians all the way over in whatever country it was, we weren't even sure yet. And we didn't get the answer right either. I'll say that right away. We did not bomb the country that was doing it to us. But those people over there were somehow worth less than a good old American, and also a white-skinned American. I've gotten, see these eyes here? These are, I have been told that this makes me more superior by people. It's like, excuse me?
Yeah.
How does that make me more superior? How does this make me more superior than somebody born, so dispensing of existence can lead to racism, genocide. Anytime that you say this bunch of people over here is less than this bunch of people over here.
Mhm.
Or also, I mean, you've seen not only in World War II, not only were the German side saying, okay, all this list of people, they're bad and they're less than people. We were doing it too. You ever seen any of the Donald Duck cartoons with the Japanese?
Yep.
It's horrible. So, gosh, that's really, really cheerful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's such a dark subject to get into, but it needs to be spoken about,
That's
unfortunately.
exactly right.
Because if we
That's
don't talk
exactly
about it, especially when it comes to history, and if we
right.
don't talk about it, then that's how history is going to repeat itself.
Mm-hmm.
Is if we allow this to just kind of, go away. It's one of those things where we have to learn from the past, and we have to learn all of that, and we have to learn from cult members or ex-cult members, and the part where you were talking about don't yell at the victims,
Mm-hmm.
that is something that I'm really big on with the content that I create. I never want a rep to ever feel like I'm attacking them, or because that's not the case. Even if I do reaction videos, it has nothing to do with the person, and that's why I blur out their face, because it has nothing to do with who they are, what they look like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just what they're saying.
It's the
And
behavior,
yeah,
not the person.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I've actually had people say that, oh well, why don't you just show the person? And it's like, because that's not the point. The point
No.
is to, and I have no, if someone wants to not cover faces, that's on them. But this is my channel. I'm gonna do what I want to do on my channel.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
simple enough once you get into your editing suite.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and that's the thing, is that I know some reps. There was one time where I reacted to a rep who was basically saying that we as human beings, we choose to be broke, and that it has nothing to, yeah, that we choose that life. We choose all of that.
Oh, the
So
secret.
yeah, yeah. And she's a very, very high ranking upline in Sensi. So I reacted to her because I wanted to show people just how I in good faith hope that all of these MLM reps, that they're not intentionally and willingly scamming people, that they were just indoctrinated into this. And
No, they think that they're saving the world.
yeah,
Your
and
average cult member thinks they're saving the world, and they think that they're offering you something wonderful.
yeah, yeah. And that's kind of the thought process that I try to have. And when I reacted to this rep, of course there were a lot of very heated conversations in the comment section, but this rep actually had her downline come to my video, mass dislike my video, which wasn't a lot. It really wasn't a lot. So she must not have that big of a team. And and then and then someone commented on it, because I guess they knew who this person was, and they had left Sensi, but they were still in the private group, the behind the scenes Facebook group. And she actually said that this rep went on to respond to my video in that group. And her initial reaction wasn't to debunk anything that I said, it was to say that I'm uneducated, and that she makes more money in 8 hours than I do in a month. And she just,
Which makes her a better person than you.
yes, yeah. And
Makes her a better person because she makes more money.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, is that sometimes, unfortunately, that's what they do. And it's because they're just so, and she's been in Sensi for a decade. So she's been in it for a
Mm-hmm.
long time.
Mm-hmm.
So
And it's elitism. It also gives you this good feeling that I'm part of something special, and those
mhm,
other people are just. So it has a double-edged sword. First of all, it keeps you in because you're part of the elite crew,
mhm,
and if you ever want to leave, you don't want to trust anybody on the outside, which is why you really shouldn't yell at a cult member, because when they want to leave, they might go, oh, but I can't leave because all those evil people on the outside are horrible to me.
mhm.
So that's why when people tell me, I've got this, my daughter's in Hare Krishna, my son is in Scientology. How do I deal with them? I go, well, the first thing is keep the methods of communication open. If you've got somebody you love in a high control situation, the best thing you can do for them is you don't argue with facts, because they can't hear the facts. And there's a zillion ways, as we said, that they'll go, no, those facts don't exist. That doesn't exist. They're not going to go point by point. They're going to go on an emotional level, and they're going to go on a personal level, so that you've got to make sure that they have a landing pad. Just ask them nice questions, send photographs, remind them of nice things, talk about something totally, completely different. Talk about Minecraft, talk about your dogs, talk about your hobbies, but don't talk about the group. Make them realize that you still love them and that there's a place for them to go afterwards.
Yeah.
That when they've got their garage full of Mary Kay products that they've had to buy to keep their car allowance or whatever. Did Mary Kay do car allowance too?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and you had to keep an entire, And I've heard that, what is it called? Garage qualified.
Yep.
And so you've got this garage stuffed with stuff and everything's hopeless. You still have somebody who still loves you for you, no matter what, even though so that they realize, well, there's another author I want to throw at you called Alexandra Stein. And she wrote a wonderful book called Terror, Love, and Brainwashing. And she talks about attachments. Because one of the things that an abusive spouse will do, an abusive group will do, is they will cut you off from everybody else. The abusive spouse will make sure that you can't see your friends anymore. You can't talk to your family anymore. Very high control groups will keep you from your family, keep you from talking to your other friends. Oh, they're not real anymore from the Dispensing Existence. So you can't, in my group, anybody else outside the group was a construct. They weren't real. They were a meat body being run by the universe for us to react to. How's that for Dispensing of Existence? And so if your only friends are in the group, you're going to stay tight in there. You're not going to, so that even if you want to leave, you can't, because there's nobody to leave to.
Yeah.
So that they take the attachment and they sever the attachment as much as possible. And
yeah, they actually, when I was in Beachbody, they had basically said that anyone who doesn't support you, like, just cut them out of your life and that kind of a thing. And I am very, very close with my family, because the only family I have here are my parents and my brother. So my family they're above everything else. It's my family and then everything else underneath. But when I was in Beachbody, they were saying how, get your parents to sign up to be like a discount coach, and they just have to drink the Shakeology. Well, that would be pointless for my parents, because they're both on specific diets, because they're older and they have, specific things that they have to get a particular diet for. And so they didn't want to really dabble with the Shakeology, because they were like, I don't know if it's okay for me. And I took that as, okay, not a big deal. Like, I offered it, and because my upline told me to, and that was it. Well, they said that for people like that, you should just cut them out. And I'm like, I'm not cutting out, especially my mom, because my dad was kind of like, maybe I'll try it. But my mom was really kind of concerned with her, at all the ingredients and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm not getting rid of my mom. Like, I'm not cutting my mom, the woman who birthed me, out of my life, especially because I have a good relationship with my parents. And I know that there are people out there that it would be very easy for them to write off their parents because they don't have a good relationship. But for me, I have a very good one. And that was one of the red flags, one of the first red flags where I was like, I don't know
That
about
is the
this.
primary red flag,
Yeah.
is that if you're told you can't talk to this person. Bringing back my boss John again,
Hmm.
his mom got into it into Scientology because she just wanted to check it out to make sure it was safe for her son. She was a very good mother by all accounts.
Hmm.
And and she went along, and then after he had gotten out of the group, somebody came to her at the Manchester, UK organization, said, what are you going to do if John gets declared a suppressive person? And she that day left because
Yeah.
she would not disconnect from her boy,
Yeah.
her youngest son. So yeah, that is the primary red flag, is if there's, and a lot of groups will deny that they do it. Scientology denies that they do disconnection, even no matter how many times we show videos of people being disconnected,
Yeah.
tapes of people, and they police Facebook too. They'll go, I can't help but notice that you're friends with X, Y, and Z, and they are suppressive persons, and and you should not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they showed that in the Leah Remini special, the
Mhm.
Scientology. I think they showed that in there because I remember hearing
Oh
that
yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, they showed a lot of that. Yeah, there's actually one case where Aaron Smith Levin, he was one of her guest stars. I don't know if you saw that episode,
Hmm.
or whether or not they even put that in the episode. They lived next door to another Scientology family, and when they got out, well, their dog used to play with their children.
Hmm.
The dog of one family A used to play with family B's children. When family A disconnected, family B disconnected from their dog.
Yes, I remember that episode. Hmm. Yeah.
Like, you're disconnecting from a dog.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was, wait, was it, I
It's a
can't,
maximum apricot poodle too. It's a beautiful, beautiful beast.
I can't remember if that was in the show or if I read that somewhere because I remember hearing that too, that the family disconnected from the dog. And it's just like,
Well, if you were
uh,
in any of the Scientology critical ex Scientology Facebook groups, when it happened, it made quite a ripple
yeah.
because everybody was like, "Really,
Yeah.
a dog?"
That's ridiculous.
But this is what happens: is that ridiculous things happen, and the people who, it's like, you ever read Sherlock Holmes and he says, I see that you're a left-handed billiards marker of and they're like, how the hell did you figure it out? Because all you see is the person and the conclusion. They
Hmm.
don't see the steps in between, and that's very much like, so that we all have in our minds the 900 some people who died in Guyana and the bodies laying, and that's the final thing. And it's like, how did that happen? What they don't see is the steps, the fact that Jim Jones at first, or at least in public, was really good at talking to people and making them feel like they mattered. And also in the place that he was at, he he was for racial equality. He was for poor people getting fed, all the good stuff, all of everything that you could really get behind, he was supposedly for.
Yeah.
So that it was like, oh yeah, that's great. His organization is really great. Look at all these people of different races, creeds, and colors all coming together to share something special. What they didn't see was the little tiny bits of control that would happen very slowly, like, well, we love you, but you can't wear that, or, well, you love you, but I have to take control of this little bit of you. It'll
Hmm.
happen very slowly, piece at a time.
Yeah. When I was, this is, I mean, it's not really off topic, but when I was researching for my Nexium series, there was an article that I came across and it was, I think they were a psychiatrist. I can't remember, but they were talking about how a lot of people, when not everyone, but some people, when they think of cult, they think of old hippies, living on a commune and that kind of a thing. And the psychiatrist was talking about it, and they were like, well, that's not necessarily what cults are looking for. They're looking for successful people. They're looking for smart people who can essentially run the cult or business for them.
Oh yeah,
So,
Danya Layla says cults are not looking because first of all, like Scientology has a whole list. If you're homosexual, well, we're not going to take you, or unless you're in Hollywood and you might be reasonably famous, then we'll take you, because they don't like gay people, but they love gay dollars. If you're a journalist, you're out. If you've got a serious mental disability, no, not going to take you. A lot of groups, they're not looking. It's not the weak. Your average cult member is highly educated, idealistic, and also it's not who gets in, it's when. Because it's your people at points of transition. That's why a lot of places recruit at colleges, because your first year university student, an idealistic, educated person who's looking to change the world. I remember what it was like when I was 20 something. I wanted to change the whole world. I had the fire of imagination and intellect and,
yeah.
So that they're usually middle class. And yeah, cults want able people who are going to be able to work, who are going to be able to bring something in. Eternal Values used Hoyt Richards. I just over on our channel, John A. Tech, Family and Friends, we just had Hoyt talking about how he got into Eternal Values, and he was the bankroll for the whole thing. He was America's first male supermodel. Yeah. Handsome guy too. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But also just a real sweetheart. He's one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing too is the company that we spoke about, I would call them a large group awareness training that we spoke about off camera, that I got the legal threat from. They, in the document that they sent me, they talked about how their programs are mostly for above average, successful, and educated people. They also, yeah, and
if that matters. No, that is actually primary fodder for high control. You want somebody imaginative and idealistic.
Yeah, and they also said how they have people that are like CEOs and celebrities and stuff like that. And as I was reading it, and I actually said this in the video too, as I was reading it, because I just got, and I keep referencing NXIVM because I just got done with the series. I just got done researching all of it. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, well, you guys are saying this and you guys are saying that it's not cult-like and it's not a cult or anything, but the thing is that if you compare it to other things, and now I'm not calling it a cult, but if you compare it to something like Scientology or NXIVM, like NXIVM had Allison Mack, Sarah Edmondson, Nikki Klein, they had all these people. Then you have Scientology where they have John Travolta, Tom Cruise. So
Heaven's Gate recruited almost exclusively from doctorates, and they ended up dying too. Rajneeshi was often called the PhD cult. There is one very high organization, I can't remember which one it is now, that exclusively recruits from Mensa. Exclusively. So when they say, well, we're not a cult because we have high control people, no, we have high intelligent people, it's like, no, sorry, there are NASA physicists in Scientology.
Yeah.
There are, and I mean, as soon as you see John, I mean, he's the most intelligent high school dropout I've ever met. He really, you know, because he basically, he calls himself an autodidact, which is fancy pants talk for self-taught. I went to my group straight out of my master's degree. And not to, but just to use me as an example, I'm not a genius, but by any of the intelligence tests that you take, I'm only either a few points off or to a dozen points off. And if you have any of the personality indicators, I have not enough ambition. But other than that, I'd like to think I'm pretty intelligent. I come from a long line of intelligent, imaginative, and passionate people, and that is prime recruiting. If cults didn't want intelligent, organized people, they wouldn't recruit at college campuses.
Yeah.
And yes, there are groups that then take away education, like Jehovah's Witnesses. They'll really get down on education, but then they'll turn around and they'll recruit lawyers so that they can have lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing. If we want to bring it back to like MLMs, when people say, oh, only stupid people join MLMs. And I'm like, no, there are a lot of really smart people. And that's because like, and I'm not saying that you have to go to college or anything like that to be a smart person, but like,
no, the wisest woman I met didn't even finish grade school.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, I disagree with that statement 110% because there are some brilliant people that are MLM reps. And like, I have my master's too, and like some of these people, they just barely graduated high school, but they're some of just the most brilliant people. And it doesn't make you stupid for joining an MLM or joining a cult or, you know.
Yeah. The real reason is because it's not about intelligence. It's about emotion and also vulnerability, a point of vulnerability. John got in because he came home from, he was a drummer for his brother's band, and he came home from France to find that his girlfriend had left with his best friend for New Zealand. Yeah, but, or me, it was because I'd just been broken up with my fiance. Yeah, well, I'm glad I didn't marry him anyway.
Yeah.
I found a much But also the other thing is with intelligence, if you believe in something that doesn't line up with reality, you're going to use all of your intelligence to bolster that false belief. You're going to use all of your intellect to excuse all of this. Intellect can work for and against you. So that people who are really highly intelligent and in a high control group will be using all of that intelligence to show you that this stuff really works even when it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because we're using our intelligence and our imagination, and we're twisting our cognitive thinking skills backwards and inside out. And that takes some thinking. That takes some brain power. It takes a lot of brain power to be wrong in the face of evidence. And that's a whole other thing, cognitive dissonance, where that's why it doesn't work to bring up facts. Because if you, there was a guy named Leon Festinger, who was a sociologist who had his graduate students infiltrate a spaceship cult. People believed that this spaceship was going to come and rescue everybody. And they all went up to the mountain. Well, not all of them. Most of them went up to the mountain. Spaceship didn't come. Now, the folks who weren't on the mountain faded away. Those who were on the mountain and didn't see the spaceship come believed even stronger. If you show me something that goes right in the face of something I believe, I will disbelieve the evidence before I will take it for granted. And that's cognitive dissonance, because when somebody disagrees with you, you wobble a little bit.
Yeah.
And you'd rather believe what you believe then listen to new evidence. That's why when somebody says, well, so and so is against this and he did this. No, he didn't. He can't have done that because of this, this, and this. We're not in a cult because this, and this. Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The mind is an amazing thing and it will work against you. And then there's did you want to go into Steve's bite model at all, or
So I was
did we want to
actually,
save that?
I was going to say, let's save that for another video. Yeah, I would love to do this again because I know that I like didn't really say much, but it's because I'm just sitting here like listening to you because I could literally, because I've heard you talk on Alanda's channel. So I could literally just sit here and listen to you for hours, but I would love to do this again and do the bite model and go over that and kind of compare it and stuff too. And just really anything else cult and Scientology related. I think that would be really interesting.
My specialty on John's channel is I take pop culture things and compare them. So there's a couple of episodes on there where I talk once with Chris Shelton, who's a great guy on Scientology, about the top 10 culty things in old Star Trek. And then I actually got my husband on camera to talk about 7 of 9 in Star Trek Voyager and how recovering from the Borg matches some of that. So yeah, that's my specialty, but yeah, I'm on that channel too.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to talk more in the future and everything
This is a
cuz
blast.
yeah, cuz you have a lot of knowledge and I feel like yeah, I just like I said, I could listen to you for hours.
Well, the thing is that I just basically, I've done my homework and I've read the stuff. It's not so much it's my knowledge as it is Lifton's knowledge, Steve Hassan's knowledge, John Atak's knowledge. I'm really good at reading a book and then telling you what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're like a storyteller.
I am actually. My sister used to do professional storytelling.
Okay. That's
And
really cool.
yeah, it's actually in the blood.
Yeah. That's interesting actually. But yeah, so I guess in the next video collab that we do, we'll do Stephen Hassan's bite model. We'll go over all of that.
Oh yeah.
And really anything else that you have to add. I feel like we could probably make this like a couple of episodes worth of chit-chatting.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So do you have anything else to add for my audience just for the time being?
Just check out our channel. We really appreciate the watches and we're trying to get it to be bigger. We'll let you know when the book comes out. It's just gone through its final edit, but now we're looking at getting it to the publisher and such.
Okay.
Called Opening Our Minds. But the channel is John Atak Family and Friends. And for anybody who thinks, well, that would never happen to me, check it out, because a high control situation can just be a job application away. It can be a new friend away. You never know where you're going to meet a high control situation, and it's best to be aware because anybody can be pulled in.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I said in one of my NXIVM videos, that I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I would never join a cult, because it could happen to anybody. Because
oh yeah,
there's so much information out there about Scientology, but people join it every day.
Fortunately, Scientology's press is so darn bad now that unless you go join by a front organization, it's very hard. But still, there are plenty of others. There's your large group awareness trainings. There's even ones that don't have a brand name because it's just an abusive office.
Yeah.
Or an abusive book club, or an MLM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But if any of the 8 points that we talk about are showing up in any kind of like, then if it looks like a duck, smells like a duck, and quacks like a duck,
It's a duck.
former dancer.
Well, thank you so much. All right, everyone. If you have watched up to here, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think of this interview below. Thank you so much to Spike for being on my channel today. I cannot wait for our next discussion because I just find all of this so fascinating. So make sure to stay tuned because there will be other parts that I speak with Spike about culty things. But anyway, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I will see you guys next time. And this is Monica reporting to you live from a highway. Bye.